The iPad has long been a daily companion of mine when it comes to scheduling, typing, and other clerical tasks that I need to do to sync both my day job and my YouTube calendar. And believe me, it takes some work to make sure that those are all synced up. Though, shortly after the iPad Air 4 came out, the M1 MacBooks were released and kind of threw my personal computing devices into a tizzy, where the iPad Pro, which I was using as my daily computer, it kind of fell to the wayside. But 2 months later, I have continued to use the Air 4, and honestly, as of today, this might be the only real productivity option left in the iPad lineup. So, why is that? Let's find out. It's on a keyboard, and it kind of fell off a little bit. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. 2 months later, a lot has changed in the personal computing space. We now have laptops with a lot of the benefits that used to be solely claimed by these iPads. Heck, we saw that in my many iPad videos. What really drew me to them was their portability, ease of syncing between devices, fantastic battery life, and the truly wonderful Magic Keyboard. You see, this is upside down, this keyboard. The problem is the iPad Pro, when outfitted with this keyboard, is actually more expensive than the brand new M1 MacBook Air. And if you aren't a graphic designer that needs the pencil support, it's probably not worth the trade-offs anymore. But, this is a video about the iPad Air. The iPad Air, it still kind of is. It's been a long time since we talked about the iPad Air 4, so let's quickly cover the technical specs and ordering options. Now, this can be had in a couple of different configurations with options to change storage size and whether or not you want it to be cellularly capable. The lowest end model, which is the one that I own, can be had for $599. This includes 64 gigabytes of storage and the brand new A14 processor. Plus, you do get a couple of more color options for the iPad Air over both the iPad Generation 8 and the iPad Pro from earlier in 2020. There's blue and green. The blue is my personal favorite, and I do kind of regret. When we look at this, you see that I got space gray. I do very much regret not getting the blue an awful lot. At the top end, you can get a 256 gigabyte storage model with cellular service for $879. Now, one of the big differences between the Air and the Pro is there are not two different size options. With the Air, you'll only get the option for a 10.9-inch screen, which I don't find all of that bad because the 11-inch iPad Pro was always my favorite. And as this is an X time later video, what we're gonna do today is cover my experiences and the thing that I've liked and disliked out of the iPad Air. Man, I wonder how many times I'm gonna slip today and say MacBook Air on accident. I can tell right now that this whole video is gonna be a huge pain in the butt to edit. I can already tell. Let's start off with the things that I dislike after all this time. Apparently that's become the tradition here on the channel. Honestly, there isn't that much. I know I say that when we talk about things that I don't like about an Apple product, I always say that there isn't much to dislike, but I think Apple's done a very good job of segmenting their entire tech lineup. So if you are buying something at a certain price point, their engineers have really thought about what features and specs that you're probably looking for and how they can accommodate that at a reasonable price. So the only real, actual problem I have when it comes to the iPad Air 4 is the storage options. You only get two. We said it earlier, you get 64 or 256 gigabytes. Neither of those is a good option. Neither of those is a good option. At the low end, it's way too low. 64 gigabytes of storage on any device in 2020. Well, now it's 2021. It's almost unacceptable unless you never, and I mean never, plan on really using this product to create anything. And I don't even mean video content. As a video creator myself, I'm not even talking about that. If you want to store anything on your iPad, a big chunk will already be taken up by the operating system, leaving you with less storage than most of my SD cards. And that's just not good. And then on the high end, 256 gigabyte isn't all that much either. That's the lowest end storage option for the MacBooks now, which even then, it's still low. And I get it, the iPads don't have all the same use cases as MacBooks, but I think if we were really trying to get a good set of storage options, the lowest end should be 128 with the top end being 1 terabyte. And that might, I know how product design works, I am a product manager myself, I know that might add some cost to the overall iPad, but I think that would actually make them usable instead of having kind of meh storage. And since we're talking about mess, something that's not bad, and it's not even that it's not good, it's just not as good as I'd hoped, and it doesn't work as well as I'd really planned on, is the Touch ID sensor that's built into the lock button. I like that it's here, and I like that Apple is continuing to give us some sort of biometric authentication, but the implementation here is kinda clunky and it's not very seamless to use. I find that if I really want to get this to work, I have to tap on the button way more often than I really want, and it's actually just been faster to not use it and type in my PIN anyway. That's just been the fastest way to unlock my iPad. And again, it's not that it's terrible, but it's just meh enough that I wanted to point it out. And that's really it. Those are my only complaints, and only one of those would I consider to be a serious complaint, and I wouldn't necessarily consider that to be a deal breaker. And I do understand that certain features needed to be cut to hit certain price points, hence the screen refresh rate. And I don't mind that because it doesn't really limit the way that the iPad Air can be used in any real way. But running out of memory with a trip's worth of family photos, that could kind of suck. Get used to having some kind of cloud storage. That's enough the negatives. Let's move on to the things that I've liked, because I did say at the beginning of the video that this is probably the only remaining useful option for a professional iPad, and I wouldn't have said that if this wasn't good. The first thing that I've liked, and the thing that I actually like the most about the iPad Air 4, is the price. We just said that you can get the base model for $599, which is more striking because of how much different it is from the price of the MacBook Air. Look, everything from a productivity standpoint will be defined by its relationship to the MacBook Air anymore. It's frankly the best work computer I've ever seen, and at $999, there isn't a lot of room to sell a high quality tablet type device to do some of the same things. The MacBook Air has made all technology a whole lot more competitive. I think the iPad Pro, both models, are really no longer the best option when it comes to what I would consider to be a travel work or work that doesn't take place at my normal desk computer. We mentioned this in a previous video, but I've been teleworking for 9 months now, and after all of this time, I cannot. It is driving me crazy to just sit at my home office desk all day. I just won't do it. I legit straight up will not do it anymore. And just to keep myself sane, I move around my house during the day. And in doing this, this has a lot of the same requirements that I used to have for traveling for work or just working at the office. A lot of the things that I need now, even though I'm in my house, are still what a travel computer would have gotten me. Doing this with the iPad Pro is still functional, but it costs basically the same or more than the MacBook Air. So the iPad Pro, I just don't use it anymore. I just do not use it all that much anymore, and I have not been recommending it as much. Sure, if you have one, it will still continue to work fine. It's not like the MacBook Air has lowered the usability of the iPad Pro. But if you are looking to buy a first device or upgrade computers, I have a really hard time saying it's the best option. And you're probably thinking to yourself, Gary, why did you just spend 3 paragraphs talking about the iPad Pro? Well, the point was that while the iPad Pro isn't worth it anymore, the iPad Air certainly is, and it is because you can get it for such a reasonable price. Sure, when you do add on this Magic Keyboard, you're looking more at like a $900 tablet, but there are other keyboard options out there from the likes of Logitech or even the Apple Folio keyboard that will move you down more towards $700. And that's a number that makes the iPad Air really easy to recommend. And remember that number, because everything else that we're going to talk about today is built around actually saving real money over the MacBook Air. Speaking about the Air versus the Pro, the next thing that I've liked about the iPad Air is how little there actually is compromised for that drastically lower price. Sure, $599 to $799 doesn't sound like it's all that much, but that's a 25% difference in the price. And with that big number difference, performance-wise, there's almost no real functionality missing between these two devices. You will get a different sort of a processor on this. The iPad Air gets the A14, while the iPad Pro currently has the A12Z processor. Unfortunately, today I'm not going to get into nerdy processor comparisons. You're welcome. You can thank me. Thank me in the comments below. But from an actual user perspective, you will not see a difference no matter what kind of a task you do, from gaming to productivity to even big tasks like video and photo editing. This tablet is remarkably well put together for the money you spend. And that's something not just about the iPad, but that's something that I really like using Apple mobile products. From their bottom of the line to their top of the line in cell phones, iPhone SE to the iPhone 12 Pro Max, to tablets, iPad Pro to the iPad Generation 8, you get the same operating system with most of these same capabilities. What other brand does that? Look, I'm also kind of a camera geek, and in no world do you get the top of the line camera with the exact same functionality as the lowest entry level camera. Sensors will be different, processors will be different, could have a potentially different lens mount, etc. But the iPad Generation 8 will do almost exactly what the iPad Pro can do. Yes, in both the Air and the Generation 8, there will be a difference in screen technology and port selection, but the operating system will do the same underlying things in roughly the same underlying ways. And that really works in the iPad Air's favor. Not only functionally does it work well, because when you are looking at the device, you can't really tell the physical difference between the Air and the Pro either. And the physical construction of the Air 4 is the next thing that I've liked. The only real way to tell the difference between this and the iPad Pro, and actually the way that I tell the difference between the two of them, is the camera bump on the back. The iPad Air is lacking a few of the cameras, namely that LiDAR camera that I've literally never used, except that the square camera array makes it easy to tell the two apart. So when I see this, I know it's the iPad Air. Yes, the iPad Pro has the technically better screen. That includes having a higher ProMotion refresh rate, but you really have to strain to see the difference. And I'd argue that if you do not have the two displays next to each other, there's no actual difference to see. Sure, I could and have do a slow motion comparison where frame by frame, you can see the Pro is a little smoother, but I use these for work and not really for gaming or other things that take advantage of those extra frames. And if you are like me, then it's not really something that I'd want to pay for or recommend that you pay for. The next thing that I've really liked is a lot like the software experience, but external. What? Okay, the accessory support on the iPad Air 4 is phenomenal. Much like you get the same functionality from iPad OS, with the USB-C port on this iPad, you get most of the same accessory functionality too. You can use all manner of drives and chargers with this newest iPad, and that's really the key thing, because even the iPad standard can use all of the same Bluetooth kind of accessories. Look, that Generation 8 iPad is also a crazy deal, and another one of the iPads that I'd still recommend. The screen doesn't look as good, it's got the older design, but it's still a fantastic device. But USB-C here opens up a whole other world outside of Lightning, which is both awesome and frustrating at the same time. Awesome that we've got it here. Hooray, another device from Apple that has USB-C. Frustrating that we don't have it on like the iPhone or other stuff. Plus, this also has the smart connector on the back, so if you do splurge on that Magic Keyboard, which is so good, and I love this keyboard. It's one of the best things about using an iPad for work. You can use the exact same one from your iPad Pro. This is actually the one that I bought for my iPad Pro. See? It's got the little square cutout for the camera. And having all these great keys, a trackpad, and that extra charging port are so clutch. You don't need one with a capital need, but this makes using a compatible iPad so much better. But at the end of the day, so what, right? We'll wrap this up where we started off. 2 months later, the landscape of productivity and travel computers has changed. There is no going back to the naive, still young man that unboxed the iPad Air 4 when it first came out. He's a little wiser, but still is young. And that's not always a bad thing. And of all the iPads, if you were to ask me for a recommendation of which you should buy, I would easily point you to the iPad Air 4. It's got the power, it's got the longevity, it's got 95% of the functionality of the bigger tablets, and you can still use this like a dual-purpose content consumption and creative device, just like the Pro line. It's legitimately a great computer, and it comes in at a reasonable price that doesn't stray too close to the sun that is the MacBook Air. And if you like this video and you want to see what the best accessories that you can get for the iPad Air 4 are, I got a video just for you, and you can find it by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.